I never thought I'd end up like this, cold, hungry, and completely alone. The streets of New York City were unforgiving, especially on Christmas Eve. People rushed past me, their arms full of gifts, their faces glowing with joy. Meanwhile, I sat on a frozen sidewalk, wrapped in a thin, tattered blanket, wondering if I would even survive the night. I had lost everything. My job, my home, my family. Gone. At first, I fought to get back on my feet, but the world felt like it was against me. Doors closed. Calls went unanswered. I had no one left to turn to. That night, the wind howled through the streets, biting at my skin. My stomach ached with hunger. I could feel the numbness creeping into my fingers and toes. I needed warmth. Any warmth. Desperate, I wandered into a small church nearby. The doors were open, the light inviting. Inside, it was empty, except for a large, open Bible at the altar. I had never been a religious man, but something pulled me toward it. As I stepped closer, my eyes landed on a verse. Never will I leave you. Never will I forsake you. I let out a bitter laugh. If you're real, God, I muttered under my breath, show me. Nothing happened. The church remained silent, the air heavy. With a sigh, I turned to leave. That's when I heard the footsteps. I turned, expecting to see a priest or a late-night visitor, but instead, a tall man in a dark coat stood in the doorway. He looked directly at me, his eyes filled with something I couldn't quite place. Compassion? Knowing? I've been looking for you, he said. Confused, I shook my head. I think you have the wrong guy. He smiled and reached into his coat pocket. No, I don't. He handed me an envelope. I hesitated before taking it. My fingers fumbled as I opened it, revealing several $100 bills inside. My breath caught in my throat. But why? I stammered. He placed a gentle hand on my shoulder. I had a dream about you last night. I was told to find you and help you. A chill ran through me, but not from the cold. Told by who? The man just smiled. Merry Christmas, he said before turning and walking away. I rushed outside after him, my mind spinning. But when I stepped onto the street, he was gone. Vanished. As if he had never been there. I clutched the envelope, my heart pounding. Was it possible? Could it have been an angel? That night, I used the money to get a warm meal and a place to stay. It was the first time in months that I had slept in a bed. Weeks later, I found a job. Slowly, I started rebuilding my life. But I never saw that man again. No one in the church had seen him enter or leave. No one knew who he was. But I knew. God had answered my prayer. And he had never left me. Not even for a moment. That night in the church, I sat down on one of the wooden pews. The warmth inside made me feel drowsy, but my mind wouldn't rest. I kept thinking about how life had turned out for me. Just a year ago, I had a steady job, a small but comfortable apartment, and friends I could count on. But then, one by one, things started to fall apart. First, I lost my job when the company downsized. Then, with no income, I fell behind on my rent. My landlord was patient, but only for so long. Eventually, the eviction notice came, and I had nowhere to go. I tried calling old friends, even distant family members, but the same answer echoed in different words. I'm so sorry, but I can't help. I spent the next few months drifting. Shelters were full, jobs were scarce, and every day became a struggle just to find food. I learned where I could get a free meal, which subway stations were warmest at night, and how to avoid the dangers of the streets. But despite everything, I never expected to end up like this, sleeping outside on Christmas Eve, completely hopeless. As these memories washed over me, I stared at the open Bible. My mother had always been religious. When I was a child, she'd take me to church every Sunday. She always said that God would provide for us no matter what. But when she got sick and we couldn't afford her treatments, I started questioning everything. Where was God then? Where was He when I needed Him the most? I leaned forward, pressing my forehead into my hands. "Why me?" I whispered. "What did I do to deserve this?" Silence. Just the quiet hum of the heater and the faint creaking of the old wooden pews. I don't know how long I sat there, lost in thought. But then, those footsteps came, and my life changed forever. After that night, I tried to find out more about the man who helped me. I went back to the church, asked around, even described him to a few regulars. But no one had seen him. No one had any idea who he was. Maybe he was just a kind stranger. Maybe he was an angel. I may never know the truth. But what I do know is that something shifted in me that night. A spark of hope that had been extinguished for so long was suddenly reignited. And that was all I needed to start again.